Southwest Topeka has a good neighbor. State Farm agent Jim Garrison, now at 29th and Urish. If your current insurance situation has you going around in circles, get off the roundabout and stop in and meet Jim and his wonderfully efficient staff. Let Jim Garrison give you a quote and make the Garrison comparison. He's confident that with State Farm's competitive rates, the right coverage, and his unmatched service, you'll want to make him your new insurance agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and Jim Garrison is there for you, northeast of the roundabout at 29th and Urish.
When someone has a passion for what they do, it comes through in the product they provide their customers. Just ask LaRocco's Pizza's new owner, Jason Johnson, about their crust. They make it every day and let it rise for a minimum of 24 hours before they use it for their pizza. And his staff doesn't want to do anything they won't be the best at, and you can taste it in their pizza. LaRocco's Pizza, just a half block north of the I-470 Engage Boulevard exit. Come taste the difference.
It's time for Real Estate 101 with the Carrie Brown team from Preferred Advisors.
Good Saturday morning to you. This is Carrie Brown, Associate Broker with eXp Realty and the Preferred Advisors team. And you're listening to Real Estate 101. I am back with my co-host for the month, Scott Sexton, with the Law Office of Scott Sexton. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am good. We have quite a few different scenarios to discuss because we see it all the time, or not all the time, but a fair amount of times, and just really want to make sure that you have the whole picture and you have ways of preventing the same things from happening to you. So I'm going to start with the scenario, and then Scott, I want you to tell them how you would have handled it. It hasn't been too long ago, I had a gal that her mom had been a co-signer on her home. And the daughter had paid off her home, and so she no longer needed mom to be on there. Just really didn't think about it, because why would you take her off now? Obviously, everything's been fine before. And mom says to her, listen, I'm getting older. You might want to take me off just in case something happens, that I have to go into long-term care. So she does, but mom ends up in long-term care before a 5-year gap has taken place. Mom passes, and now she owes for a car and for her mom's taxes, because you still have to pay taxes after you pass away, and they have to pay that out of the proceeds of the daughter's home. What could she have done differently?
Well, the best thing that a person can do, especially if you have a family member's name on any of your accounts or any of your real estate especially, is to speak regularly or have regular appointments with an estate planner, just regular checkups. Everybody is supposed to see their doctor every year, and even more frequently the older you get. And the same applies for estate planning as well. And so if you have a family member that's a co-owner, a co-signer, or in any way entangled with you legally on any of your assets, especially if that loved one or family member is over the age of 65, you really should be having annual discussions with an estate planner, someone to look at that and determine whether there's something different that can or should be done at that given point. And even in the extreme cases where people are worried that it's too late because mom or dad are in the nursing home, or that they've run up some debt, or their unpaid taxes, there may be things that you can do to have those debts or encumbrances waived. Again, I hate to speak in generalities, but it really is a very detailed, sensitive issue. The main thing is I just always encourage people, don't be afraid to get those annual checkups. And in some cases, attorneys such as myself, I have annual checkups where there are no fees or obligations. I tell my clients, hey, schedule out an appointment with my staff a year, 6 months in advance, and there is no fee for anything like that. And I know there are a lot of estate planners that do something similarly. Don't be afraid to go out there, find an attorney who's willing to give you 30 minutes of their time every 6 months, every year, just to check in and run through those battery of questions. But it's extremely important anytime there's an enmeshing of legal rights where I'm on someone's account or someone's on my account. In those types of cases, it's extremely important that you read.
Okay. And with that specific scenario, can you imagine if she had actually had a mortgage whenever she went to sell and there was a tight margin there? That could have been a huge mess. they ended up having to escrow for a period of time until they could get Ford Motor Credit to let that go, which they did. But tax-wise, she still had to pay her mom's taxes out of her proceeds.
Yeah.
So, crazy. You don't even think about things like that.
And that's exactly the reason why it's important to have those meetings, that regular meetings, is that there are just so many pitfalls out there that just you wouldn't think of unless you talk to someone who's seen it all.
Yeah, it's definitely, at this point, I don't know that there's a whole lot that I haven't seen, but, I really am, I don't want to test fate either. Okay, so the next question, and I see this one pretty often too, and unfortunately it just doesn't always seem to end very well. Mom and Dad go to great lengths to make sure that they have covered all their bases. Their will's in place. They have designated out certain items that they want the kids to have, and then it's like, okay, now sell the family home, split the proceeds. And it never seems to fail that someone has a bigger idea of what it is they think that they should get, or thinks that somebody's doing something they shouldn't be doing. Not to say that they might not be, but more often than not, it's just somebody's in more dire straits than the other siblings. And they kind of twist and maneuver things, and the next thing you know, now we're in court fighting over something that Mom and Dad did everything they could to try and keep clean. What could they do to prevent that from happening, Mom and Dad, or even the siblings, to make that easier so that they don't have to go through probate when it's really not even necessary?
Yeah. Well, the unfortunate truth is, what I oftentimes tell people is, all it takes to be sued in this country is for somebody to know where the courthouse is and have $50 in your pocket. The real issue is what can you do to avoid putting yourself in a position where you could potentially lose in court, and losing in court's the real danger. My advice to clients, it typically runs the gamut of anything from more of a social solution, where I may recommend that my clients retain the services of a social worker, go to counseling, see if they can work through those family disputes to identify issues now and work through them while everyone's relatively healthy. Sometimes going to the attorney's the last thing you want to do, and if we can resolve issues through other less dramatic means, just simply by going through proper counseling now, that's what I would always prefer that we do. In other cases, I oftentimes like to use long-term care planning as an excuse to bring the family to the table now so that we can have lengthy conversations about what should or would happen if Mom or Dad were to pass away. And so that way there are no surprises in the future. We give the opportunity to the family members who may complain in the future. We give them the chance to make those complaints now, so that later on, if they rose those issues in court, we can always go back and say, well, we gave you plenty of opportunity to voice concerns at the time, and you didn't say anything about this. So the opportunity for VA or Medicaid or other types of long-term care planning as an excuse to bring everybody to the table is a great option, because, as I found in one case recently, because we were doing VA planning for Mom, it allowed us to enter into lengthy mediations between the siblings. They hired a mediator, brought everybody in front of the mediator, went back and forth over a couple of weeks, and we were able to work out a lot of the financial issues. A lot of family members had concerns that one family member was manipulating Mom or Dad, and there were other rumors that were being circulated. Well, we brought in a mediator, a trained professional whose job it is to resolve these types of disputes, and they were able to work through much of those issues now for a fraction of the cost. Plus, we have repaired part of those relationships that were damaged that could have led to those issues down the line. So anything that I always try to encourage people, again, communicate with your family members especially, so that there are no ambiguities. And while those conversations can sometimes be very difficult, it's less difficult than the types of conversations your kids are going to have with their attorneys in the future. So I always encourage people, the more you can do now, now to work through, to mediate these issues while you're younger and healthier, the better. But ultimately, there really isn't any silver bullet solution to making sure that if you've got a problematic black sheep that they won't cause a problem. There's just no way to absolutely protect against that 100%.
Which brings me to my next question. Would it be better to have, say, a bank or an attorney, and do you do this yourself, but become a trustee to take care of this so that there's maybe less fighting?
Well, it can be very helpful to have what are called corporate fiduciaries serve kind of to manage a trust, to take these responsibilities away from family members. And I think that the examples that you were giving where there's possible infighting, those are good opportunities as well. If you've got kids who you're afraid are going to want to litigate each other into oblivion after you pass away, bringing in a corporate fiduciary may be a good fit for you. Again, there are some very excellent trust officers here in Topeka. There's a couple of different trust companies. Obviously, Core First is a prominent one. I believe Roger Eichelman at Core First is more than happy to meet with families and talk through any cases where they think they may benefit from having a corporate fiduciary in place or a corporate trustee. It's important to keep in mind that there are ongoing fees for those trustees to serve in that role, and they can have very broad powers of managing your affairs in a state, either while you're alive or after you've passed away. And then there are other times where they have very limited scopes of work where they may only pay certain bills for you or do certain things. It really is something that you can customize. I, as an attorney, don't like the idea of attorneys serving as trustees over the trust they create, and I myself don't serve as trustee for any of my clients. I think that it's a far better fit to have family members or a corporate fiduciary like a bank serve in that role. For families where you have a loved one who you trust is not going to do anything inappropriate with your money, and that they're competent and capable of managing your affairs, there's less need, in my opinion, to have a professional trustee step in and manage those. And so if you trust Cousin Johnny to come in and pay your bills once a month, and a lot of the families, I would say the vast majority of seniors here in the greater Northeast Kansas area, they oftentimes will have a family member or loved one who, when they are ready to ask for assistance in managing their money, they have that family member. As long as you have someone that fits in that role, I think it's perfectly fine and acceptable to have that individual serve as your trustee or your executor, or whoever your trusted individual is. But if you don't, then I think it's extremely important that you talk with your attorney about finding a fiduciary that would be able to work with you and look out for your well-being as a way of not only making sure that you're taken care of properly, but that your loved ones don't have any excuses to fight amongst themselves whenever possible.
We are going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. We'll be back here in just a few.
It's the season for brand new mulch, and Brown's Tree Service has got your yard covered. Brown's Tree Service utilizes hardwood mulch that retains more moisture. Not only does mulch make your yard more appealing, it also reduces weeds, improves soil, and creates insulation for plants. Get the right mulch for your job at Brown's Tree Service. They shred it, haul it, and spread it in bulk. Or you can haul it yourself for the personal touch to your property. Call Brown's Tree Service at 785-379-9212 or visit online at brownstreeservicelc.com.
At SportsMomsUnited.com, we celebrate every athlete and support every sports mom. SportsMomsUnited.com is on a mission to put logic back in youth sports. When you ask young athletes why they play sports, their number one answer is fun. For them, that means being on a team, making new friends, having a good time, all of which are awesome memories. We add to the memories by featuring an athlete of the day and sharing their story. Nominate an athlete today at www.sportsmomsunited.com.
When someone has a passion for what they do, it comes through in the product they provide their customers. Just ask LaRocco's Pizza's new owner, Jason Johnson, about their crust. They make it every day and let it rise for a minimum of 24 hours before they use it for their pizza. And his staff doesn't want to do anything they won't be the best at, and you can taste it in their pizza. LaRocco's Pizza, just a half block north of the I-470 Engage Boulevard exit. Come taste the difference.
Thanks for joining us again. This is Carrie Brown, Associate Broker with eXp Realty and the Preferred Advisors team. I am back with my co-host for this month, Scott Sexton, the attorney from the office of Scott Sexton. Thanks for joining me again, Scott.
Thank you.
So my question now would be, what would you like for the community to know about what you do?
I think the most important thing I want to encourage folks to know about kind of myself and others who do the work that I do is I want you to disregard your preconceptions about what an estate planning attorney is or what a lawyer is. All too often, I think many folks are intimidated by what you see on TV or what you see in commercials during daytime television about what an attorney is. They're dressed sharply. They're in a three-piece suit. They want to talk to you about your injury that you've had. I view myself more as an educator. My job is to provide the public information about their options so that they can make informed and educated decisions when it comes to sometimes very complicated estate planning issues. And if you have that notion that it's going to cost me too much money to get this information or to get the work that I want from an attorney, or I'm going to be overbilled for that, then oftentimes people use those as emotional crutches and excuses not to seek out those answers. And so the most important thing I want to emphasize to anyone listening is you can get the answers to the questions that you need without having to spend money. And that is the philosophy that my office has. We have what I call an open door policy. So anyone who is interested in information about long-term or estate planning or any elder law issues, if you'd like to schedule a time to sit down and talk those through any questions or seek out information from us, we're an open book. I'm not going to require you to set aside a retainer. Anything more than your time is really all I ask for. And the same holds true for many attorneys that are in this area throughout Northeast Kansas. Don't be afraid to seek out those answers from a local attorney or an estate planning attorney and see if you can at least start those discussions with a professional or even with your own family. Because having those discussions will lead to the ultimate decision-making process that really a lot of folks can't afford to avoid forever. So that's the main thing is don't be afraid to approach attorneys for this information. Most of us have open door policies. Feel free to reach out, seek those answers, and have those discussions.
Okay, which seems like a really good time for you to plug your phone number.
Here in Topeka, my phone number is area code 785-409-5228, and you can also find me online at scottsextonlaw.com.
Okay, so when someone's coming in to meet with you, let's just say, cut to the chase, have a spreadsheet, have a list. What should they have on that so that you know what you're dealing with?
The main thing I need from a family that's reaching out to me is questions. I need to know what are your number one concerns? What are your priorities? What are your wishes? Because a reoccurring theme I think I've given in most of my answers is, well, it depends on your situation. And I need to know what the thing that really informs my evaluation process is, what are your priorities? Because I can't just assume you're going to have the same priorities that I do. If you want to make sure that Cousin Johnny doesn't get a dime of your money, I need to know that day one. And so number one is I need to understand what makes your situation unique. What are your concerns, priorities, issues? As far as kind of the ones and the zeros, the raw data that I or any estate planning attorney would need, it's very helpful to have a summary of your finances. We need to know what you own, what you don't own, what are your obligations, what are your income, things like that. Just a broad brushstroke overview is very helpful. I don't need to have every last penny accounted for. I just need a bird's eye view of your situation to be able to get my head wrapped around your concerns and what we have to work with as far as our evaluation goes.
Okay, so let's say planning didn't take place. Mom or dad or both end up needing long-term care. So they've gone into long-term care, and the children are left to figure out how to pay for it. What would be your advice? Obviously, broad stroke.
My advice is always seek out those resources. Find estate planning attorneys or long-term care planning attorneys in your area that do this type of work. That's the number one priority any family should have, and don't just assume that it's hopeless. Do not feel as if it is your financial obligation or responsibility. All too often I have families come in and we find out, well, Sister Susie has been paying for Dad's nursing home bill for the past 2 months. That type of thing, while it instinctively it sounds like it's a good thing that you should be doing, or it's an appropriate thing to be doing, that's probably the last thing you want to be doing, because those obligations aren't necessarily something that have to hang around the necks of family members. Family members oftentimes are worried about, well, what's my obligation for Mom's care when she runs out of money? Well, you may not have any obligations, and in fact, in all likelihood, you probably don't. So it's important that as soon as you have those questions about long-term care, you need to be having those discussions with an attorney as soon as possible. So the main thing is, if Mom and Dad reach that point, they need that long-term care, you need to be scheduling an appointment with an attorney as soon as possible.
Give me examples of how you've helped people through these types of scenarios.
A pretty common one I would draw your attention to is a case I had out in western Kansas, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And in this particular case, Mom was in assisted living at the time, and they weren't sure. Mom was in her early 90s at the time. She was sharp as a tack, and she had a family history of longevity. Everybody was of the opinion, well, Mom's probably in better health than I am, and for all I know, she could live to be 120 years old. Nobody really had a crystal ball and could say what was going on. The concern that the family had was that Mom had significant farmland that she and her husband had been farming for the better part of the past half century. And now their son had been farming that land for them. He was essentially just working the land. That was his career. And the concern that Mom and her children had was, well, if I run out of money, we're going to either need to sell the land, which would mean that son is out of a job because he no longer has land to farm, or if we had to get a lien against it, a Medicaid lien, then the state of Kansas may force him to leave the land when they sell the land. So that was the big driving concern that the family had at the time. So when they came to me, we worked out a plan where we were able to generate some additional funds to pay for Mom's care, and worked out a family sale so that the land could be protected in a trust, and we were able to spend a portion, but not all, of Mom's cash that was generated from this family sale. So in this case, I want to say we probably set aside somewhere in the neighborhood of about, maybe $120,000, something like that. And once we were done positioning the assets at the time, we were allowed to apply for Medicaid. It's extremely important to understand that when you apply for Medicaid, anytime you've done any type of planning, you must be 100% transparent with the state of Kansas. There is no such thing as hiding money from the state. That is Medicaid fraud, and that is a big no-no. So what we do is we outline for the state, we illustrate every single move that we have made to plan for Mom's care, and we take advantage of any number of exemptions and workarounds that the state of Kansas approves of. The state of Kansas has a manual called the KESUM, and I forget what the acronym stands for, but basically it's the training manual or the operations manual that the reviewers of any Medicaid application has to be governed by. And so what we do is we study the KESUM, and we know ahead of time exactly how the state's going to look at and evaluate the claim. So we were able to make the correct moves. We knew how the state was supposed to react to seeing the moves that we outlined for them. We executed our plan, and then when we submitted the application for Medicaid, the end result was we were able to keep that farmland available for the son. He did have to pay down some debt on the land, but it was a better option for this family than having to lose the land and the son losing his livelihood. And then, in addition to that, we were able to save some cash held in trust for Mom. Now, normally when you go on Medicaid in the state of Kansas, you are required to go into a semi-private room. It's the quote-unquote Medicaid room, where you have a roommate. You may not be happy with the accommodations. You have less control typically over the quality of the facility and over the quality of the services that you receive. There's lots of complaints that people get basically when they go into a Medicaid room. If you have extra reserves, you can privately negotiate with a facility. When you go on Medicaid, they will allow you to stay in your private room, your nicer private room, if you make additional contributions to the facility each month. So basically, the way it can often work out is family members or their trust will make those contributions each month to the facility for pennies on the dollar to keep Mom in her private room. So in this particular case, out in western Kansas from a few years back, what we did is Mom had some significant cash in her trust, and each month we paid our facility $200 out of her trust to keep her in her private room. And the end result, of course, is Mom stays in her private room. She goes on Medicaid. She is stabilized financially. She's not hemorrhaging $10,000 a month. She's breaking even each month, and she's paying a little bit extra out of her trust to keep her in her nice room with her nice view where she's happiest. And so we're able to kill a lot of birds with some detailed planning, and not to get kind of bogged down in the details of it, but it really just boils down to what are your number one priorities. When you come to me and you outline your goals, I need to figure out what is the bottom line that's going to give you peace of mind for the rest of Mom and Dad's life. And once we've identified those, then it's a matter of figuring out what techniques and steps we can implement to get those objectives satisfied. And I have yet to meet the truly hopeless client where there's absolutely nothing that we can do to get peace of mind. Because typically there's something. If you've got a goal, if you've got a worry or concern, then you're probably not coming to, or if you do have those things, you're probably coming to an attorney. You're asking for help. If you don't have any concerns, if you're happy with the status quo, you're not coming to an attorney. So those families that reach out to us, we can, as long as we can identify those needs and what it takes to get their peace of mind, there's a way that we can find those for you. There are very few truly hopeless cases that I've ever seen.
The point in that is reach out. You know, I mean, obviously there are ways to work around everything. I've seen you work with several different families now, and they've all been very, very happy. And some have escalated super quick. You know, Mom or Dad were only in long-term care for a short period of time, not expected to be that short of a period of time, and you were still able to work your magic so that they were able to sell the house and still be able to have proceeds, which is nice. It's definitely good to see, you know, that the family does get some benefit from Mom and Dad's hard work. So, one more time, how do they get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me here in Topeka is at 785-409-5228. That'll get you into my office. Again, feel free to ask to just speak to me, and Kelly would be happy to pencil you in a time for us to chat at your convenience. I do have evening and weekend hours available. You can also reach out by checking our contact information on our website at scottsextonlaw.com. The main thing is that should patch you into our email and phone numbers there as well. So feel free to reach out and let us know what we can do to help answer questions for you.
And if you're looking to buy or sell, be sure and give us a call at 785-213-5188. As you can tell, we've seen just about every scenario, knock on wood, that's happened out there. So we are definitely pretty well versed and able to help. Again, 785-213-5188, or check out our website, preferredadvisorsteam.com. Thanks for listening to Real Estate 101.
Thank you for listening to Real Estate 101 with the Carrie Brown team from Preferred Advisors.